The desperate call, the Solar Storm Crisis Commander Lyra Zen stood on the observation deck of the Zephyrian Science Nexus, watching their star Kepler 442 with growing dread. For 3,000 years, the gentle orange dwarf had provided steady, life-giving warmth to the three worlds of their system. Now, violent solar flares erupted across its surface like angry scars, each one more powerful than the last. Behind her, the soft chiming of crystalline computers filled the air as scientists worked frantically to understand what was happening to their sun. The Zephyrians had built their entire civilization around harmony and balance. Their cities floated gracefully above pristine landscapes, powered by clean energy harvested from their star's gentle radiation. They had never known war, never built weapons, never imagined they might need to flee their paradise worlds. Dr. Keln Vara, the system's chief stellar physicist, approached with his usual quiet grace. His forearms moved in the traditional gesture of concern as he presented his latest findings on a shimmering holographic display. The data was worse than anything they had feared. "The cascade has accelerated," he said, his melodic voice heavy with worry. "Our models now predict total stellar instability within 4 months, not the year we hoped for. The radiation levels will become lethal to all life on our worlds within 90 standard days." Lyra closed her large amber eyes and felt the weight of 60 billion lives settling on her shoulders. As the commander of their People's Emergency Council, she had been chosen to coordinate their response to this unprecedented crisis. The Zephyrians had always solved problems through cooperation and careful thought, but this time thinking might not be enough. "What about the deep shelters?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "They will protect perhaps 10% of our population for maybe 6 months," Keln replied sadly. "The radiation will penetrate even our deepest installations eventually. The electromagnetic pulses from the flares are already disrupting our technology. Soon even our life support systems will fail." Lyra moved to the great window and gazed out at the 3 planets visible in the distance. Zephyr Prime, their homeworld, glowed blue and green with 60 billion souls living in perfect harmony with nature. Zephyr Beta housed their greatest universities and research centers, while Zephyr Gamma served as their agricultural paradise, feeding the entire system with its floating farms and orbital gardens. The decision to reach out. The Zephyrians had been monitoring radio signals from space for centuries, but had never felt the need to make contact with other species. Their philosophy emphasized patience, observation, and respect for all life. They had detected signs of intelligence from dozens of star systems, including a particularly active group of signals from a yellow star, about 40 light-years away. The beings from that system seemed energetic, perhaps even aggressive, based on the variety and intensity of their transmissions. "We have to try," Lyra said finally. "Prepare the deep space communication array. We'll send a message to every intelligent species we've detected. Someone out there might have the technology to help us." Dr. Senator, their lead xenolinguist, had been working on theoretical contact protocols for decades. She stepped forward with a data crystal containing her life's work. "I've prepared a mathematical and pictorial message that should be understandable to any technological species. It includes our star charts, our population data, and clear images showing our crisis." The message they crafted was a masterpiece of universal communication. It began with prime numbers and mathematical constants to establish intelligence, then moved to pictorial representations of their solar system. Careful diagrams showed their star's instability, the 3 inhabited worlds, and their desperate situation. Images of Zephyrian families, their peaceful cities, and their dying world were encoded in the transmission. Most importantly, the message included clear symbols representing concepts of peace, cooperation, and assistance. The Zephyrians had no words for invasion or conquest in their language, so such concepts never appeared in their plea for help. Humanity's dark interpretation. 40 light-years away, on Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega-7, Dr. Marcus Chen was finishing his night shift when the most complex alien signal in human history began streaming into their receivers. As Earth's leading xenolinguist, Chen had spent 15 years studying potential alien communications, But nothing had prepared him for this. The signal was incredibly sophisticated, far beyond anything humanity had ever received. It contained detailed star charts, population estimates in the billions, and clear evidence of advanced technology. What worried Chen most was how the signal seemed to focus on specific star systems, including Earth's. He immediately contacted Admiral Sarah Rodriguez at Earth Defense Command. Rodriguez was a career military officer who had risen through the ranks during humanity's expansion into space. She had fought pirates, rogue AI systems, and the brief but brutal conflict with the Centauri Mining Consortium. In her experience, advanced aliens making first contact usually meant trouble. "They know where we are," Rodriguez told the emergency council that convened 6 hours after the signal's detection. "This isn't some random broadcast. It's a targeted transmission to multiple star systems, including ours. They're cataloging potential targets. The images in the alien message, showing vast cities and billions of inhabitants, were interpreted as demonstrations of military might. The star charts were seen as invasion plans. Even the mathematical sequences were viewed with suspicion, advanced aliens sharing their technological capabilities as a form of intimidation. Look at these population figures," Rodriguez continued, pointing to the holographic display. 60 billion beings across 3 worlds. That's 3 times Earth's population. If they're hostile and they're reaching out to multiple systems simultaneously, we could be looking at a coordinated multi-front attack. Dr. Chen tried to argue for a more careful analysis of the message, but his concerns were overruled. The alien transmission had arrived during a particularly tense period in human politics. 3 separate terrorist attacks on orbital stations had killed thousands, and public opinion strongly favored aggressive defense policies. Battlegroup Titan deploys. Within 72 hours of receiving the alien message, Earth's most powerful naval force was preparing for departure. Battlegroup Titan consisted of 12 of humanity's most advanced warships, including the flagship Sovereign, a massive dreadnought carrying enough firepower to glass a continent. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the Sovereign's bridge, reviewing the mission parameters with mixed feelings. At 38, he was young for a capital ship commander, but his tactical brilliance had earned him rapid promotion through the fleet ranks. He believed in protecting humanity, but something about this mission felt wrong. "Sir, the alien signal. Analysis is still incomplete," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim, his communications officer. "Dr. Chen is requesting more time to fully decode the message." Morrison nodded grimly. "I understand his concerns, Lieutenant, but we have our orders. If these aliens are planning something, every day we delay gives them more time to prepare." The human fleet was impressive by any standard. The Sovereign alone carried 200 fighter craft, enough Marines to occupy a small city, and weapon systems that could crack a moon. The 11 ships accompanying her included heavy cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels loaded with the most advanced military technology humanity had ever created. As Battlegroup Titan prepared to enter hyperspace for the 3-month journey to the alien system, Admiral Rodriguez sent a final message to Captain Morrison. "Remember, we're not going there to start a war. We're going to make sure they understand that humanity is not an easy target. Show strength, maintain defensive positions, and be ready for anything." The journey and growing tension. The 3-month journey through hyperspace gave both sides time to prepare, though for very different reasons. Aboard the human ships, Marines trained for boarding operations while pilots practiced attack runs against theoretical alien vessels. The ship's AI systems analyzed every piece of data about the alien message, searching for hidden weapon signatures or coded military intelligence. Captain Morrison spent long hours studying the alien transmission with Dr. Chen, who had been assigned to the mission as the fleet's xenolinguist. The more Chen analyzed the message, the more convinced he became that humanity was making a terrible mistake. "Captain, look at these images," Chen said during one of their late-night sessions. "These aren't military installations. These structures are consistent with research centers, cultural sites, maybe even art galleries, and these population density maps. They show civilians, families, children." Morrison studied the holographic displays floating between them. or they show a heavily populated system with extensive infrastructure that could be quickly converted to military use. Dr. Chen, I respect your expertise, but we can't base our defensive posture on hope. If we're wrong about their peaceful intentions, billions of humans could die. Meanwhile, in the Zephyrian system, the situation was becoming desperate. Solar flares now erupted daily, each one more violent than the last. The electromagnetic pulses had begun destroying their technology, starting with their most sensitive communication equipment. Entire cities had been evacuated to underground shelters, but these were never designed for long-term habitation. Commander Lyra Zen watched the evacuation efforts from her command post deep beneath the capital city. Millions of her people moved through the tunnels with the same calm dignity they had shown for millennia, but she could see the fear in their large eyes. Children who had never known anything but peace now huddled in emergency shelters, while the sky above them burned with deadly radiation. The final preparations, as the human fleet neared the end of its journey, both sides made their final preparations for first contact. The humans expected to find a powerful alien civilization with advanced technology and unknown intentions. They prepared for everything from diplomatic negotiations to full-scale warfare. The Zephyrians, meanwhile, continued to deteriorate under the increasing solar radiation. Their long-range sensors detected the approaching human ships 2 days before arrival, and the readings filled them with hope and confusion. The vessels were enormous and clearly advanced, but their energy signatures were unlike anything in Zephyrian databases. They're so different from us, Dr. Vara observed as they studied the sensor data. Their ships seem designed for, I'm not sure what. They're incredibly robust with what appear to be multiple redundant systems. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps their star system is more dangerous than ours. They may have needed to build stronger ships to survive their environment. That could explain why they have the technology to help us when we could not help ourselves. Neither side realized how catastrophically they had misunderstood each other. The Zephyrians prepared to welcome their saviors with gratitude and cultural exchanges, while the humans prepared to face a potential enemy with overwhelming force. In just 48 hours, 2 completely different species would meet for the first time, and the galaxy would never be the same. When Giants meet arrival in Hell Battle Group Titan dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian system, with weapons charged and shields at maximum power, Captain Morrison stood on the Sovereign's bridge, watching the tactical displays as his fleet spread into a defensive formation that had been perfected through decades of human warfare. What they found was not what anyone had expected. The star, Kepler 442, writhed like a living thing in agony, its surface covered with solar flares that extended millions of kilometers into space. The electromagnetic radiation was so intense that the human ships had to boost their shielding to maximum, just to maintain safe operation. On the tactical display, 3 planets hung in space like dying jewels, their surfaces scoured by radiation that would have killed any unprotected life instantly. Jesus Christ, whispered Lieutenant Kim from her communication station. Sir, the radiation levels in this system are off the charts. Nothing could survive on those planets without massive shielding. Dr. Chen moved to the science station and began analyzing the sensor data. What he saw there made his blood run cold. Captain, we need to reconsider our entire assessment. This isn't a military system preparing for conquest. This is a civilization facing extinction. On the main viewer, the 3 Zephyrian worlds were visible as tiny dots against the burning backdrop of their dying star. Advanced sensors revealed massive underground installations and what appeared to be extensive evacuation operations. Cities that had once floated gracefully in the atmosphere were now abandoned, their populations driven deep underground by the lethal radiation. First contact goes wrong. The Zephyrians detected the human fleet almost immediately. After months of hoping for rescue, the arrival of 12 massive vessels filled them with desperate joy. Commander Lyra Zen rushed to the main communication center, where her surviving technicians were struggling to make contact with the alien ships. They're enormous, reported Dr. Vara, studying the sensor readings with amazement. Each of their vessels is larger than our biggest space station. The energy output alone suggests technology centuries ahead of ours. Surely beings this advanced can help us survive our crisis. Lyra authorized the transmission of their most powerful welcome signal, a complex mathematical greeting, followed by images of their dying worlds and desperate situation. The message was broadcast on every frequency. Their failing equipment could manage, accompanied by universal symbols of peace and gratitude. Aboard the Sovereign, Lieutenant Kim detected the incoming transmission and immediately routed it to the bridge. "Captain, we're receiving a massive signal from the planet. It's incredibly complex. The aliens are definitely trying to communicate." Captain Morrison's tactical training kicked in. An immediate response to their arrival, broadcast on multiple frequencies with considerable power, fit the profile of a military challenge or an attempt to coordinate defenses. Red alert. All ships maintain defensive posture. Do not respond to their transmission until we know what we're dealing with. The human fleet spread out across the system in a formation designed to prevent enemy ships from escaping or receiving reinforcements. To the Zephyrians watching from below, it looked like their rescuers were taking strategic positions to begin evacuation operations. To the humans, it was a standard containment pattern used to isolate a potentially hostile system. The misunderstanding deepens. Dr. Chen worked frantically to decode the Zephyrian message while the two fleets maintained their tense standoff. The mathematical portions were relatively straightforward: prime numbers, physical constants, and geometric relationships that any technological species would understand. But the pictorial data was far more complex, requiring cultural context that humanity simply didn't possess. "Captain, I'm seeing images of what appear to be population centers, but they're all underground now," Chen reported. "There are also repeated symbols that seem to represent their star, along with what might be distress indicators." Morrison studied the partial translation with growing unease. Underground population centers could be military bunkers. The focus on their star might indicate some kind of stellar engineering project, perhaps a weapon system powered by their sun's energy. "Doctor, could this be some kind of ultimatum? A demonstration of their capabilities?" Meanwhile, the Zephyrians were becoming increasingly confused by the human fleet's behavior. The 12 massive ships had spread throughout their system, but made no move to begin rescue operations. Worse, deep space sensors indicated that the alien vessels were powered by some kind of controlled nuclear reaction, technology that the peaceful Zephyrians found both impressive and terrifying. "Why aren't they responding to our messages?" Lyra asked her communication team. "We've sent them everything. Our language matrices, our star charts, clear images of our crisis. Any intelligent species should be able to understand that we need immediate assistance." Dr. Vara had been analyzing the human ships with growing concern. "Commander, their vessels are unlike anything in our theoretical databases. The energy signatures suggest they're designed for conflict. Their hulls are armored against weapons we can't even imagine, and those projections along their sides, they could be some kind of directed energy systems." The realization hit both leaders at the same time. The Zephyrians suddenly understood that their rescuers were warriors, beings who had built their technology around concepts of conflict and defense. The humans began to suspect that they were facing a civilization with such advanced technology that they considered stellar engineering a routine military option. Dr. Chen's breakthrough. After 18 hours of continuous work, Dr. Chen finally achieved a breakthrough in translating the Zephyrian message. The mathematical portions had been straightforward, but understanding the cultural context required him to approach the problem from an entirely different perspective. "Captain, I need to show you something," Chen said, his voice filled with exhaustion and growing horror. "I've been approaching this translation wrong. I was looking for military terminology, strategic concepts, anything that would fit our expectations of first contact. But that's not what this is." On the main screen, Chen displayed his translated version of the core Zephyrian message. Instead of military intelligence or invasion plans, it told the story of a peaceful species facing extinction through natural disaster. The images he had interpreted as weapon systems were actually evacuation shelters. The population data wasn't a demonstration of military might. It was a desperate count of how many lives hung in the balance. "My God," Morrison whispered, reading through the translation. "They're not planning to attack anyone. They're dying." The full translation revealed the truth that both species had missed through months of misunderstanding. The Zephyrians had sent a simple plea for help to every intelligent species they could detect, hoping that someone somewhere might have the technology to save them from their dying star. They had no concept of military conquest because they had never needed one. Their entire civilization was built around cooperation and harmony. "Captain," Chen continued, his voice shaking, "according to this message, they've been waiting for rescue for 4 months. Their star system is completely unstable. The radiation levels we're detecting, they're not weapon signatures. They're evidence of an ongoing natural disaster that's killing everything in this system." The human moral reckoning. The bridge of the sovereign fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had responded to a desperate plea for help by sending a battle fleet armed with enough firepower to sterilize worlds. 12 ships filled with weapons and marines had arrived in a system where peaceful beings were dying by the millions, and their first action had been to assume hostile intent. Admiral Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communication system from Earth, having traveled 40 light years to reach them. The message was 4 months old, sent when the fleet first departed. "Captain Morrison, intelligence analysis suggests the aliens are using their distress signal as cover for military reconnaissance. Maintain defensive posture and be prepared to respond to any hostile actions." Morrison closed his eyes and felt the weight of command settle heavily on his shoulders. "Dr. Chen, how long do they have?" "According to their projections, total system, sterilization within 6 weeks, maybe less." Chen pulled up the stellar analysis data that the Zephyrians had included in their message. "Captain, their star is in complete cascade failure. This isn't something that can be stopped or reversed. Every living thing in this system will be dead within 2 months. Lieutenant Kim spoke up from her station. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the planet. It's the same message as before, but they've added new images. They're showing us their evacuation efforts. Children, families, entire cities being moved underground." On the main screen, the latest Zephyrian transmission showed scenes that tore at the hearts of every human who saw them. Graceful beings with 4 arms and large, gentle eyes were carrying their young to safety in underground shelters. Elderly Zephyrians who could barely walk were being helped by younger members of their community. Art and cultural artifacts were being carefully preserved even as entire cities were abandoned to the deadly radiation. Humanity's greatest decision, Captain Morrison called an emergency conference with his senior officers. Around the holographic display table, 12 of humanity's finest military minds grappled with a situation that no training had prepared them for. "The mission parameters are clear," said Colonel Martinez, the fleet's Marine commander. "We were sent here to assess and contain a potential alien threat. If they're really as helpless as they appear, then they're not a threat. But we can't just leave them to die," replied Commander Sarah Torres, captain of the cruiser Defiant. "We have the most advanced space fleet in human history. If we can't help them, who can?" Morrison looked around the table at officers who had spent their careers preparing for war, now faced with the greatest humanitarian crisis in galactic history. "Dr. Chen, is there any way our ships could assist in an evacuation? Do we have the capability?" Chen pulled up the technical specifications for the human fleet. Battle Group Titan had been designed to project military power across interstellar distances, but that same capability could be repurposed for evacuation operations. "Captain, our ships have massive cargo capacity, advanced life support systems, and the ability to support millions of people for extended periods. The marine transports alone could evacuate entire cities." "But where would we take them?" asked Torres. "Even if we could save them all, they need somewhere to live. A new star, system, habitable worlds." Morrison stood up and walked to the great viewport, looking out at the dying Zephyrian system. 60 billion innocent lives hung in the balance, and humanity had the power to save them. It would require transforming a military fleet into the Largest rescue operation in galactic history, but it could be done. Signal all ships, he announced. We're going to save them, all of them. The greatest evacuation in galactic history. The transformation of Battlegroup Titan from a military force into a humanitarian fleet was itself a testament to human adaptability and engineering. Within hours, weapon systems were powered down and converted to support evacuation operations. Fighter bays became refugee processing centers. Marine barracks were reconfigured as temporary housing for displaced families. The first human shuttles to land on Zephyr Prime were met by crowds of desperate but hopeful refugees. The Zephyrians had never seen beings like the humans, shorter, more compact with only 2 arms and small eyes adapted for a brighter star. But when the shuttle doors opened and human Marines began helping Zephyrian children to safety, species differences became irrelevant. Commander Lyra Zen met Captain Morrison at the main evacuation site, a vast underground complex that housed nearly 1 million refugees. Through hastily programmed translation devices, the 2 leaders were finally able to communicate directly. "Your people came to help us," Lyra said, her forearms moving in gestures of gratitude that Morrison was beginning to understand. "Even though we are strangers, even though you knew nothing about us, you came." Morrison felt a mixture of pride and shame. "Commander, I have to be honest with you. We didn't come here to help. We came because we thought you were a threat. We misunderstood your message, and we almost made a terrible mistake." Lyra's large eyes showed confusion. "A threat? But we have no weapons, no military. We've never fought anyone in our entire history." "That's what makes this so remarkable," Morrison replied. "Your people are facing extinction, and you still reached out to strangers with hope instead of fear. You trusted that someone out there would help you, and you were right." The new alliance, the evacuation, took 6 weeks and required every resource that both civilizations could muster. Human ships worked around the clock, ferrying millions of Zephyrians to temporary shelters constructed in asteroid fields and on the edge of the system. The Zephyrians shared their advanced energy and propulsion technologies, allowing the human fleet to operate far more efficiently than ever before. But the real transformation was cultural. Human Marines who had trained for combat found themselves teaching Zephyrian children to play games. Zephyrian artists created beautiful works celebrating the friendship between species. Engineers from both civilizations worked together to solve problems that neither could have handled alone. Dr. Chen and Dr. Vara became close friends as they developed the first comprehensive translation protocols between human and Zephyrian languages. "Your people have a concept we've never encountered," Chen told his alien colleague. "You have 17 different words for types of cooperation, but no word at all for enemy." "And your people," Vara replied, "have the most amazing capacity for transformation. You came here as warriors and became our saviors simply because it was the right thing to do." The final evacuation ships left the Zephyrian system just days before their star finally collapsed into complete instability. 60 billion Zephyrians had been saved and relocated to 3 carefully selected star systems that could support their unique biology and culture. The human fleet had not only saved an entire civilization, but had gained allies whose peaceful wisdom would influence human development for generations to come. Legacy of understanding. Years later, the Zephyrian evacuation became legendary throughout human space, not as a military victory, but as proof that humanity's greatest strength was not its weapons or its warriors, but its ability to recognize when it was wrong and choose compassion over conflict. Captain Morrison, promoted to admiral after the evacuation, often spoke at military academies about the mission that changed everything. "We went to the stars prepared for war," he would tell new officers, "but we found something better. We found out who we really are when it matters most." The Zephyrian refugees thrived in their new homes, and within a generation, joint human-Zephyrian colonies became centers of learning and culture throughout the galaxy. The peaceful aliens taught humanity new ways of solving problems without violence, while humans provided the protective strength that allowed Zephyrian culture to flourish, even in an uncertain universe. Commander Lyra Zen, now an elder stateswoman in the Galactic Council, often reflected on that desperate day when her people sent their plea for help into the darkness of space. They had asked for salvation and received something even greater. They had found proof that even in the vast, dangerous galaxy, kindness and cooperation could triumph over fear and misunderstanding. The message that had started as a desperate cry for help had become the foundation of the greatest alliance in galactic history, and somewhere in the cold depths of space, the ruins of the Zephyrian system served as a reminder that sometimes the most important victories are the ones where nobody has to die. Humanity had arrived as conquerors, but left as protectors. The Zephyrians had called for help and received not just rescue, but a new understanding of what was possible when different species chose to see each other not as threats, but as potential friends. In the end, that made all the difference in the galaxy.